Hey guys, I'm Becca Hilburn. I am a comic artist and a watercolor artist, and I am here to tell you that watercolor is so much more than loose watercolor florals. Okay, all right. The title was intentionally a little bit clickbaity, but that is what I see everywhere, and I have seen it everywhere for the past 3 years, and I get it. Watercolor florals are fresh, they are vibrant, they are fun, they seem so effortless and easy. I totally get the appeal, but as a watercolor comic artist with an MFA in comics, I feel like people are really missing out on the scope and the range that watercolor has to offer. Now, I might be a little bit biased since I am a watercolor comic artist. I want to push both watercolor and comics to you guys, and that's what I do here on the channel. But I want to challenge and encourage you today to dig deep, flex those watercolor and creativity and storytelling skills, and try utilizing watercolor for something else. And today, I wanted to just kind of talk about what I do and sell you guys on the idea of using watercolor for narrative art. So we're going to start with where my heart is, watercolor comics. I have a bunch of examples of my watercolor comic art from my ongoing watercolor comic series, 7-inch Kara, up behind me. These are from the latest chapter, Chapter 9, but you can read the first 8 chapters either as a webcomic, and you can really see my growth as an illustrator, a comic artist, a watercolor artist, and a storyteller. You can read those for free at 7inchkara.com, or if you like the dead tree format like I do, or you are looking for a wonderful gift for a precocious preteen or teen who likes Studio Ghibli, nature, and cottagecore vibes, enjoys themes that include nature and friendship and family, and is interested in art themselves, or you just want to buy something nice and pretty for yourself, Volume 1 and Volume 2 are both available in my online shop at nattosoup.com/shop. I promise this isn't just an ad. I really just want to give you guys some context for what I do, who I am, why I do it, and why watercolor is so much more to me than just the fad of the year. And I'm not trying to demean loose watercolor florals. I think they are beautiful, but to be very honest, it kind of breaks my heart that watercolor hand lettering and watercolor florals are the most popular watercolor categories on YouTube, on Instagram, basically anywhere. They really kind of dominate, and I do kind of get it. But as a watercolor artist who has been painting for over 10 years, I do have to tell you guys the brushwork required to do either of those, the fine motor control required to do either of those. If you think you can do hand lettering or you can do loose watercolor florals without having any drawing skills, any composition skills, any color skills whatsoever, you are being deceived. They require a huge amount of skill and ability to be able to execute beautifully. And while that isn't a reason not to do them, they are not as easy as I think they are proposed to be. If you're interested in something like that, where there's a lot of existing resources and a lot of books on the subject and will really walk you through the brush strokes, Chinese calligraphy, Chinese watercolor might be a wonderful place to start. So I'm not here to diss on my brothers and sisters who are doing the beautiful watercolor hand lettering with the swooshy brush calligraphy, nor am I here to diss on my brothers and sisters who are doing the beautiful loose watercolor florals. I am here to encourage you to try a variety of watercolor, particularly if you're struggling with the calligraphy or you're struggling with the loose watercolor florals, but you still want to paint watercolor and you still love watercolor. I'm here to introduce you to some other options that might be up your alley. So first, I love watercolor. I have loved watercolor for a long time, but what got me into art is narrative storytelling. I love comics. I've been making comics since I was 13. I went to school for comics. I love the comic art form. I love the storytelling involved. I love the narrative sequences involved. I love the beautiful facial expressions you can get. I love the breadth and the depth that you can achieve with comics. It is, in my opinion, perfect, the quintessential art form, because it combines the written word with the visual depiction, and it's just such a rich experience. In fact, I did my master's thesis on how comics actually help emergent readers. And my mom was teaching literacy to young children at the time, and she was able to help me with a lot of resources. And this was before there was much research that kind of backed up that comics specifically help with literacy. So I was pulling a lot from facial expressions, sequences of events, cause and effect, having the text reflect the imagery involved, which comics often do and sometimes subvert, which is very educational as well. But now there's a plethora of research that shows that comics are not just good for emerging readers, they're great for reluctant readers, and they are wonderful for readers who are neurodivergent like myself. So I have big love, huge love for comics. I read comics all the time, have for decades now. So like, that's where my foot is. I didn't get into, I liked sketching when I was younger, but I didn't really get into art into a big way until I started reading manga, and I fell in love with how expressive the faces were, and the fact that in manga, at that time period, female protagonists were actually a thing and not just an object to be won, which was what was going on in commonly available Western comics that were available to a little Louisiana girl like me. So you guys can obviously see the manga influence to my art. I love the big eyes, I love the expressive faces, I love the floofy hair, but I've also worked really hard to find my own art style, my own storytelling, to bring a lot of myself and my own lived experiences into my art. And that's been a delight and a challenge for years. It's something that I really pushed myself to do, and I really hope that when you read my comic, you can not only see me, and please don't be like, Kara looks just like you. Like, that's not what I mean when I say you can see me. I mean, you can see my affection for the art form, you can see my affection for the reader, you can see my affection for the environments and for nature in those pages with the love that I put into watercoloring them. But I also hope that readers can see themselves in it as well, because comics has such a beautiful opportunity to invite the reader not only into the characters, but into the world itself. So to me, and I've talked about this before, comics is absolutely not a lesser art form. It is treated like a lesser art form. People look at the cartoony art I make and they make very ill-informed judgments about my abilities as an artist and what I might have to bring to the table and what I might have to offer. But as a woman in the arts, I'm very used to that. But it is no less of an art form, and if you are already biased against cartoony art, cartoons, animation, or comics, I would really like to challenge you as an artist interested in art to examine those biases, figure out why you don't like it. What is it? If you examine the breadth of comics and animation, you would know it's not just for children, that it's often very deep, impactful, and important stories. And even the stories told for children are often deep, impactful, and have an all ages appeal. So if I have to explore the wider world of art to be a better comic artist, I challenge you, whether you are an established artist who's very proud of their work and in gallery shows, or you are learning about art, I challenge you to explore your preconceived notions and maybe give comics and animation a try. Try reading some, try watching some. So that is already a hurdle that I find I have to face as a comic artist and illustrator here on YouTube. I have noticed that primarily comic content like this, where we're teaching people how to draw and make comics, particularly taught by women and femme-presenting people, tends to get snoozed upon. And there are psychological reasons for doing that. I will link some papers for you guys down in the description below. But TLDR, basically when people figure out it's a woman behind the project, they tend to assume less competency. Whereas if I had a male name, if it was Joseph being the face of the project, they would assume more competency. So there's already some hurdles there, but I would really love to challenge you as a fellow artist to examine those biases deeply and consider if my art or if what I have to say here on the channel might be helpful to you. It would really, really mean a lot to me. And even if you walk away not liking me, not liking my art, and not liking what I have to say, the fact that you will have challenged yourself to examine these biases will make you a better artist, because that is part of what we as artists do. And that is one thing I have a bit of a problem with when it comes to people who want to focus on just learning brush calligraphy, or just learning the loose watercolor florals, or just learning any one very small segment of art and illustration, is that it is harder to challenge your biases if you're only ever drawing one type of thing. So that's one of the beautiful things about drawing and painting comics, is I have to be able to draw and paint. If you can think of it, I have to be able to draw at some point in my career. Vehicles, animals, nature, environments, interiors, exteriors, facial expressions, figures, hairstyles, clothing. If you can name it, it is something I will have had to draw at some point, or will have to draw at some point in the future. And I know for a lot of people that seems hugely daunting. How do you learn how to draw all of these different things? How do you manage? The secret is twofold. There's a story about how to eat an elephant, and the answer is one bite at a time. We don't learn how to draw all these things at one point. You learn a system that helps you understand the world. For me, it's volumetric drawing. I have tutorials here on the channel that will demonstrate that for you guys. And that's how I break down the world and I learn how to draw it. It took years of practice. It took a lot of sacrifice. I gave up having a social life in undergrad, but it was well worth it. It was an investment I made in myself and in my ability to draw that will continue to pay dividends as I learn how to draw more things. So you take it one bite at a time, and you also just practice and put a lot of time in. You don't have to be able to draw everything wonderfully all at once. Art is a journey, and I feel like comics, you can draw bad comics. You can draw bad comics art-wise, and they still be great comics. Some of my favorite comics have very rudimentary art styles like XKCD or Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal, but that resonates with the viewer. Okay, we're not buying it for the art, but we're buying it for the commentary and for the relevancy and for the comedic value. So a beautiful thing about drawing comics is you don't have to be good at drawing to be good at comics. What's most important is learning how to communicate. And there are a lot of wonderful comic artists on Instagram who don't necessarily have the most showy art style, but their little slice of life day-to-day comics are hugely popular because they reach people and they touch people. So you don't have to be good at comics to be able to make comics. So that's another reason I really want to encourage you guys to give them a shot, because I find comics is a much more easy entry point than learning how to paint realistically or learning how to do the loose watercolor florals that require composition skills, color theory skills, and a really wonderful mastery over the brush that you have. And I find that it has so much more room for expression by combining the visuals with the written word than hand lettering does. So I would love to see, my dream would be to see other comic artists here on YouTube be championed for what we're bringing to the table and what we're sharing. Now, is that a selfish goal? Maybe. Is it a biased goal? Maybe. Have I been told, oh, Becca, there just aren't that many people interested in comics or in drawing? Oh, for sure. But I am here as a drawing and a comics evangelist, and I've got a boatload of tutorials that if they don't make it easier for you, please reach out to me and let me know what you feel is missing. I am happy to try to facilitate that. As someone with ADHD myself, I am interested in different learning styles and how to help different people. And I cannot afford financially to hit every learning need at this point in time. I wish I could, but I do teach in-person classes. I have stopped doing streams for the time being because I have family members who I've had 2 years of family member health emergencies, and I've had some of my own health issues. So I would love to resume the streams. It's just harder for me to do right now, but I miss you guys. And I also, for my patrons, and it doesn't cost much to join, but I am more than happy to do written blog style tutorials if by request. Those do take a lot of time to write, but I'm happy to do that for my amazing patrons. And I also share my class materials from my in-person classes, so that would be the presentations that I make when I teach. And I have so many really good fleshed out presentations with lots of how-to and lots of step-by-step that I share with my patrons, because one, Patreon gives me a platform where I can share those things. Google kind of let Blogspot rot for me, so I can't really use it like I used to. And two, it allows me to earn a little bit of income on what I do. And I'll be real, part of my rationale for wanting to encourage you guys to give comics a shot is I would like to sell more comics, obviously, but I would also love it if more people were interested in comics and making comics, because I have found that when you have the respect for the art style, you're more willing to support it, and you kind of fall in love with it, and you want to start collecting art that reflects it. At least that was my lived experience. All right, so I talked to you guys a whole lot about comics and watercolor comics. Obviously, you guys can see where my heart is, but I am also a really big fan of watercolor for narrative, storytelling, illustration outside of comics. So picture book art, children's book art, or just images that tell a story like some of the ones that you guys see behind me. Now, you guys see a lot of comic pages because I really wanted that to be front and center, one of the most important things that I'm bringing to the table today, because I am here, heart on my sleeve, as a comic artist, asking you to give comics a chance. But I also really like cartoony illustrative art. I personally find that I respond much more to cartoony art than I do with realistic art. And I think watercolor can work wonderfully with more cartoony or more stylized art, like some of the examples that you guys see here in the background. Now, if you're not ready to do full comics yet, I totally understand. It can feel very daunting, although I am here to help, and there are formats that are easier, but you might find doing doodles, doing illustrations might be a little bit more up your alley, or you may find that you just want to paint along. And I can't speak for all the other illustration artists out there, but I can speak for me in that I share line arts of my illustrations with my patrons on Patreon, and I do have a coloring book, Curious Little Things, brought to you guys by request. So many people did ask if I would make a coloring book. You could color in this coloring book with color pencils or crayons or markers, and not this one, this is a sale copy, but I have tested that out myself. But I wasn't in love with the paper as a watercolor artist, so I have a link in this book where you can download the full-size scans of the illustrations and paint them yourself, kind of like this example up here, because I really want you guys to give watercolor a shot. I really want you to learn to feel confident in watercolor, and I really want you to push yourselves creatively. I've been doing a lot of research on art influencers that kind of inspired this video, and there are so many art influencers who make their money selling courses on creativity. I'll give it to you for free as a comic artist who probably has more art education and more experience than many of them, who has taught children and adults for 10 years. The secret to creativity is find something you love and explore that topic. Get ideas from your kids, from your friends' kids. Let your pets inspire you. Let the world around you inspire you. If you have a great love for something, whether it's sewing or baking or travel, let that influence your creativity, and take notes in a pocketbook, a sketchbook, or your phone when you have ideas, so that when you have time to work on those ideas, you actually can go and search that, and that way you won't have to deal with art block. I very rarely deal with the problem of not having ideas of what to draw. I often have to deal with the problem of just feeling totally burnt out as an artist, working so hard to share my art and illustrations with people who might enjoy them, and fighting the social media algorithm, and fighting the stigma that artists should be poor, and living in Southeast Louisiana where art and illustration, unless it's the state of Louisiana or a fleur-de-lis or Saints related or LSU related or a tiger, they don't want that, or oyster shells, they don't want that. So, gosh, ADHD, me, lost my train of thought. But basically, creativity is inspiration. It is all around you. We all have it in us. And if you are struggling to find your creativity and your inspiration, your life may be booked too solid. You may be too busy to get those little sparks of inspiration. But I promise you, once you start cultivating it and writing those ideas down, you'll get more and more and more of them. There, I saved you $500 to $2,000 on a creativity course. You've got it. You've got the inspiration. And if you need the motivation, see, that's the problem. You have creativity, but motivation is a limited resource. It can be hard to find. I am happy to share that with you, what I can, in my art-centric mailing list. I'll link it for you guys down in the description below if you'd like to join me. And I have a very nice Discord server. It is open to the public, called the Paint Box. It is a very friendly and encouraging Discord server, but I have to warn you, most of us have cartoony art styles. So you're welcome to come in with whatever you like to paint and draw, but you are going to be surrounded by some of the nicest comic artists, cartoonists, and illustrators you'll probably meet in a while. So having a community that cares about your growth and supports you can be so inspiring and so motivating. Now, here's the trick that I've noticed a lot of these art influencers, with their mailing lists and their classes. Now, some of them will tell you how to sell your art, sure. And some of them will share their resources with you, sure. But so many of them assume that all of us are struggling to make art. All of us are struggling to make time to make art. All of us are struggling to find creativity or don't have ideas for what to make art. I am probably at this point subscribed to like 20 art influencer mailing lists as part of a larger project that I'm working on. And they all write the exact same emails. And it makes me want to completely redo my mailing list because that's been covered. I want to like dig in and talk about other things. So if you are like me, tired of those same repetitive emails, let me know what kind of topics you'd like to hear me either vlog about or write about, and I am happy to dive into it with you or chat about it over on the Paint Box. So nice little aside there, because I really want to get you guys motivated. And I find that people often turn to the hand lettering and to the brush florals because it seems very easy, because they make it look very effortless, and they promise that even you can do it. And they're often selling style drills, which is not a bad idea, actually. The style drills can be really helpful in building up that muscle memory and building up those fine motor skills. But you don't have to feel intimidated by illustration. You don't have to feel intimidated by portraiture or animals or nature. The same sort of thought process that would be required for those loose watercolor florals, composition, color theory, hand and brush control, that also goes with drawing animals or drawing nature or drawing people or drawing comics or drawing from your imagination. But watercolor doesn't have to be all about drawing. I have also made some watercolor bookmarks. These are watercolor bookmarks in general are quite popular. It's a good way to use up scraps of watercolor paper that you might be hoarding. It's a wonderful way to practice different skills, and it makes a useful item. I think I might want to start doing phone case inserts because that would give me a chance to show off some of what I've done out in the wild, and it might encourage people to paint along with me. But all of my Watercolor bookmark tutorials feature you really don't need to be able to draw. Very limited drawing skills, very simple. Focus on 1 or 2 watercolor techniques that I walk you through. Can be done in an evening. They're all very, very, very cute. And it's a variety, whether it's a landscape like this sunset, or something fun and cute like this space bookmark, or something festive like these fireworks, or something meditative like these watercolor circles that just blend into each other. I try to, or something that is really more impressive than the sum of its parts, like this sweet little beach scene. It's really important to me to try to make watercolor as accessible and as approachable as possible, because I love geeking out about art and art supplies, and I want more of you to geek out with me. I want more friends. I'm kind of lonely over here. I told you guys I live in Southeast Louisiana. I've got like 2 art friends. I need some more. But going back to, if you were interested in watercolor for illustration, which is kind of where it got its start, like think of Beatrix Potter. Really, it got its start as an affordable way to do underdrawings or sketches for larger paintings that would be done in a more expensive medium like oil or acrylics. And this is kind of why for a really long time watercolor wasn't considered a fine art material. And even watercolor illustration like what I do, or picture book illustration, or even just whimsical card illustration, is not considered fine art. So I'll give you a salient example, very recent example from my life. I'm part of a group. I don't know if I want to use their name. They are a local business group. I grew up in the area. They'll invite me to come sell my books and prints and things at different events, but they are having a gallery and they didn't invite me. And I sure feel like Maleficent, because people still don't really think about illustration as being something that is worthwhile to other people or purchasable to other people or something that people would want. But I will tell you guys this, before I moved back to Louisiana, I lived in Nashville for 10 years, and my original watercolor art and illustration was a huge seller. I sold originals all the time. Do you know who bought them? Teenagers, young adults, women my own age, women my mother's age, men, all kinds of people bought them, but they were people who liked more whimsical art and weren't just looking for the same kind of art that all their friends already have up, or they weren't looking for art that it looks like it's been in a Motel 6 for 10 years. So even if you are not necessarily confident enough yet to paint along with one of my tutorials, owning an original piece of watercolor art or illustration can be a wonderful way to bring some more personality into your home and to have art that you actually connect with and that means something to you. And I'm not saying that's not possible with the more abstract watercolor art, or with hyper-realistic watercolor art, or with very realistic watercolor floral illustrations, or with hand-lettered lettering in watercolor, or with loose watercolor florals. But I will say that I do make it a point in my art and illustration to try to represent a wide variety of people, and I'm always trying to push myself more, because as I mentioned to you guys in earlier, that it's really important to me that people are able to see themselves in my comics, and it's really important for me for people to see themselves in my art. I want my art to spark joy for you, and I'm not so certain that you'll have the same connection with a beautifully rendered watercolor illustration of a rose as you might with a watercolor illustration of somebody who looks like you, or somebody who is connecting with a family member in the same way you enjoy connecting with a family member, or a piece of art that reflects your interests and your hobbies. So one of the beautiful things about illustrative art is it's more representational. So often with the realistic art or with the abstract art and with art everywhere in between, you have to really interpret it. And to that degree, it can develop a more personal relationship if you really resonate with that piece. But if you just kind of feel so-so about it, you may never connect with this piece that you spent $100, $200, $500, $1,000, $2,000 on. Whereas with illustration like this, it either clicks with you or it doesn't click with you. It either reminds you of your child or your grandchild or your niece or your nephew or someone you love, or it doesn't remind you. It either looks just like your favorite dog or it doesn't. And the nice thing about this is that connection is often so immediate and so intense. Every time you look at that piece of art, you'll feel that joy, you'll feel that connection, and it's meaningful to you. And I love that. I'm not trying to talk down about these other forms of art, but as somebody with ADHD, it can be harder for me to connect to hand lettering where it's a quote from Tolkien or a quote from the Bible, or it's something that everyone has said so many times that it ceases to be meaningful to me anymore. I mean, a beautifully hand-lettered name, a favorite phrase, something your spouse says to you, that is meaningful. Having hand lettering for your wedding invitations or for birth announcements, that's meaningful. But I think illustration like this is also very meaningful. And I think people really snooze on it and don't appreciate it enough, don't give it enough love, because we've gotten to the point where we look at illustration and we think it's for children. And I love making things for children, but let me tell you this, kids are very smart and kids have good taste. And while very young children will watch whatever garbage is put on for them, older kids are very discerning and teenagers are incredibly discerning. Just because something is made to appeal to kids does not mean kids will accept garbage or like garbage. So just because something might be more for kids does not mean it doesn't have importance or resonance to you. I mean, look how many Disney adults are out there. How many grown adult women think they are Belle in real life? I have met way too many grown adult women who think they are Belle in real life. So if you can connect with a Disney movie like that, what is stopping you from connecting with any other animated or illustrated piece of art? Another thing I want to talk about are watercolor sketches and watercolor sketchbooks. You guys are seeing a lot of larger, more finished pieces behind me, but that is absolutely not the sum of what makes watercolor watercolor. There are so many studies and sketches and just kind of seeing if something will work out for you and experimenting with things and trying things out. I'm going to show you guys a more finished piece where I was experimenting, and then I'm going to show you guys some watercolor sketches. So this is a more recent addition to my Louisiana food series. It is my character Kara from my comic jumping onto a bag of Zapp's potato chips, like you might jump into a beanbag chair. And I really wanted to bring a level of fun and liveliness. So for the background and to introduce some interesting local color underneath the painting itself, I did some water pours. Now, I haven't done a whole lot of water pour. It makes a lot of a mess, and my computer is at my working table, so I can't afford too much water mess. So I wasn't as brave as I would have liked to be. I really wanted some bigger splats and some more movement. But this was an opportunity to try something that makes me a little bit scared, makes me worry that I'm gonna get water all over my computer, and try something that I can't quite control and that I have to learn to live with and work with whatever happens. And I'm very pleased. I think this is a very cute illustration. I think it's a wonderful addition to my watercolor food series, and I've been working on these illustrations as a series of prints that I sell as art prints, so a little bit more affordable way to own some of my art, as well as have a piece that maybe you connect with some aspect of this. Maybe you also, like me, really like Zapp's Cajun Crottator potato chips. I don't know, but I hope you'll see something in my art and it makes you smile and it brings some joy to your life. And I want to encourage you to try those things and take those risks and push yourself out of your comfort zone and try something that isn't walk through step by step by step by step and figure things out, even if it feels scary and you're worried that you'll ruin it or you'll make some mistakes. Would this piece be more popular on social media without the splats? Possibly. I like the splats. I wish the splats were even bigger, but I took a risk and I did something that might fail. And that is the beautiful thing about watercolor. People act like watercolor is so hard to make corrections on. I don't know what they're talking about. People act like watercolor is so challenging. Y'all, I did acrylic before I got into watercolor. In my opinion, acrylic is harder to fix. It dries far too quickly on your palette unless you're using extenders. If you're painting these giant pieces like we were required to paint, fixing mistakes, yeah, you can slap on those layers, you can cover mistakes, but it's costly. Watercolor, there are so many tricks for either lifting things up, fixing things, or hiding them, or making them work for you that I don't think of them as mistakes. Even when I was terrible at watercolor painting years ago, it was still an exciting and joyful part of the process. And I feel like a lot of people who want to come into watercolor need to learn to let go of that fear and let go of those inhibitions. And I know it's scary. I have a really bad problem with anxiety. So believe me, I understand fear and anxiety, but watercolor should be fun and playful, and you should try to meet other people who are also into watercolor if you can, and who paint things differently than you do, different subject matter, different art style, different way of handling the materials, if only to inspire and encourage you to try something outside of your comfort zone. And that can be the beautiful thing about YouTube. It's harder to find those of us who are cartoony illustrators or comic artists, but we are here and we are sharing our work and sharing our techniques and sharing our materials with you. And we would love your support, your encouragement, and your help in spreading this love and spreading these tutorials and in spreading this joy. So that could be a way to discover new artists and new inspiration as well. You can also just walk around and explore on Instagram and just kind of click through who it recommends. I do recommend, because I find that if I start doing that with like one type of artist, it will only recommend more of that type. So you do need to vary up who you click from time to time. But if you're looking for more watercolor comic artists and illustrators like me, if you're looking for more comic artists like me, you can join me over on Instagram at NattoSoup, and hopefully Instagram will recommend some of my friends to you guys, because their art is so good and they have been so inspiring to my own work. So another thing I want to show you guys is watercolor sketchbooks. And watercolor sketchbooks are such a wonderful opportunity to do studies and to play around. This is not going to show up. To do studies and to play around with different colors and with different techniques, and just to kind of get an idea for what you want the paints to do, or how you can handle, oh, I love these mushroom studies still, for how you want the paints to handle. And you don't have to show anyone, and these sketchbooks are cheap enough that it's really not a waste. So many people are so caught up, they don't want to waste their art supplies, but y'all, if you don't use them, they do spoil. So you should use them, and you might end up with art you love, or you might end up having a good time. So these are some of my favorite things that I'm working on right now. They are little sketchbook illustrations. I have several different ones. They are start to finish tutorials, so I take you guys through the sketching, the inking, and the watercolor process. And I have printable line arts if you just want to paint along with me, or you just want to color. And to be fair, it's all stuff I like, so mushrooms and strawberries and cute girls and frogs. But if you wanted to, you could do whatever you desire in your own watercolor sketchbook. And it does all have a more cartoony, more stylized bent to them, because that's what I love and that's what brings me joy. But you could do very similar in whatever art style you like and whatever art style sparks joy for you. I just want to encourage you guys to please think outside the box, to challenge yourselves, because watercolor and art are so rewarding. But if you never do anything that scares you, you'll miss out on those rewards. If you never try anything, then you miss out on that growth. And this is also a little bit inspired by a Jenna Rainey email I got about, are you copying me? Which anyone who looks at her art and looks at my art, I didn't think it was aimed at me, okay, y'all? We're very different artists. But it was basically encouraging people how to make minor tweaks while following her tutorials to make it their own. I want to encourage y'all to ramp that up to the nth degree. Paint dogs, paint fruit, paint mushrooms, paint moss, paint whatever you want. Be bold, be brave. So many of these art influencers, like from Jane Davenport to, not gonna name any more names, I think Jane can take the hits. They really want you to make art, and that's a beautiful sentiment. So they give you stamps and they walk you every single step through the way so you can make art that looks just like their art, because that's how they think they're going to help you. And I don't know. Does that help y'all? Do you feel like you feel enabled and empowered to make art? Or, as I really worry, do you feel like you have to copy everything step by step, or it's not going to look as good? It doesn't matter if it looks as good. They've been drawing and painting and making art for decades longer than you have. So why are you expecting your art to look like their art when they've been doing it forever and you're starting today? Embrace the maybe failure. Embrace the maybe ugly. That's not to say that I don't have my own tutorials that I think you guys should check out, but I'm hoping my tutorials are more building block tutorials. I want to teach you guys skills so you can draw whatever you want. I sure hope you'll try comics or try illustration or try cartooning, but if that doesn't bring you happiness, then don't do it. I was forced to make, in my undergrad, art I hated because my teachers didn't like comics and didn't like cartoon art, and I only had a couple who were kind of accepting of what I wanted to do in my vision. They were so busy trying to mold me into what they wanted. And the same at art school, where they really did not like my anime and manga influenced style and were trying so hard to break my spirit so I would just do what they wanted me to do. I don't want to be that with you guys. I want to give you guys the building blocks. I want to encourage you and inspire you and talk you up and make you feel empowered. And then I want you to make your own art. My younger brother is also an artist. We have very different art styles. He is super into Gundam and mech, and while I think that's cool, that's not my thing. But I love seeing his art. I love encouraging him. And even though we have different art styles and different goals, I can find ways to help him grow his art. I teach art, and when my students give critique, they critique my art too. And even though they're 13, 14, and 15, and I am 37, and I have leagues more experience than they do, they have such wonderful insight and so many ideas and tips on things that could be improved or tweaked in just such a way to make my art better. So I firmly believe we all have creative eyes. We all have taste in art. We all have things we like and things we don't like. And I really want to encourage you. Don't feel like you have to limit yourself to what Instagram and YouTube are putting on your For You page or recommending in your feed. Go out and explore different art styles and find other artists who you really like and you really resonate with. Because if I hadn't read manga when I was 13, I would not be making comics today. So it's about finding that art and those artists who spark that joy and who spark that passion, and finding the subject matter that you want to make. I make watercolor comics about tiny people, about an ADHD coded little girl navigating the larger world, making friends and having to deal with the consequences of her choices, because that is meaningful, impactful, and important to me. When I get to really talking about it, I start to cry. It makes me emotional. I want you to feel that way at least sometimes. about the art you make. Whether it is a beautiful alligator that you're painting in a swamp that might not be here in 5 years, or a delicious brioche that you learned how to make and now you want to paint it so you can memorialize that triumph of baking, or your child playing with blocks and you want to capture that moment not just in a photo but in a watercolor illustration that you can put up above your fireplace, or your dog who's so wonderful and friendly and full of love for you, but dogs have such short lives and you want to capture that moment. Making art creates mindfulness. It forces us to stay in a moment. It forces us to slow down, and it forces us to look at things and look at things and look at things and notice things and appreciate things. And art and watercolor have made my life richer. And I want to encourage you guys to broaden your art horizons in hopes that it will make your life richer as well. So I really hope I've inspired you today. I hope I've fired you up, and I hope I've given you permission to start making and maybe failing at making, but takes a lot of failure to get good. Failure isn't a bad thing. Social media makes it seem like you're only worthwhile if everyone loves everything you make. Try not to read too much into that. You will make yourself crazy. You don't have to share that with anyone if you don't want to. You don't have to take 15 likes personally if you don't want to. If you are making art that you enjoy making, if you are making art that you love, if you are making art that means something to you, you will keep making art regardless of what other people think or don't think, notice or don't notice, say or don't say about your art, because you'll love it and it will be meaningful to you. Now, I can only speak from my line, from my vision and my bias, making illustrative, narrative, storytelling work. And there are some examples that are not that, for sure. I love making art just in general, but making illustrative storytelling work that features a diverse array of people and clothing and body types and interests, that makes my life worth living. That brings joy to my heart. That is my way to communicate to you guys that I love you, that I see you, that I want you to be represented in art, and that you mean something to me. That is my way of communicating my best hopes, my best wishes. That's my way of making the world a better place. Whether it works or whether it doesn't, I'm doing the best that I can. And no amount of likes, no amount of people not liking something I do, no amount of people not engaging with what I make will make me stop trying to do that. So even if you are failing, and gosh, I feel like I'm failing so hard sometimes, you will still keep trying if you love your subject matter, if you love the act of painting, if you love the watercolor on the page and how the paints react with the paper and how they mix to form these other colors, that it will bring joy, it will bring calm, it will bring peace, it will bring excitement to your life. Can I promise it will bring friendship? It's sometimes hard for me to find people who I want to share my work with. I can't promise that. Can I promise that it will bring popularity, that it will pay your bills, that it will be the answer to your problems? No, that's the stuff that MLMs promise. I can't promise you that, and any art influencer who promises you that is lying to you, because that's not a promise any of us can make. As artists, all we can do, from Van Gogh to Miyazaki, all we can do is our best and try to bring what we want to see in the world out to the public and hope that you guys will like it. So don't worry about making art other people like unless you're making it for that specific person. Make art that you like, that makes you happy. And if it's ugly, who cares? Draw it again. Consider it a thumbnail. Consider it a first draft. Even writers write 3 or 4 drafts before it's finished. They get new eyes on it. They get fresh opinions on it, and they keep building on it. Don't worry about your failures as just abject failures. Think of them as a step towards what you want to make. Are you gonna have to sink time in? Yeah, art's not easy. Are you gonna have to sink energy in? Oh yeah, art requires everything of you. Could you do this with your kids, your nieces, nephews, grandchildren? Oh, absolutely you can. I love drawing with kids. Are you kidding? It's so much fun. They're so full of ideas. It could be a wonderful way to bond with people in your life, especially because kids do not let being bad at art stop them. Many of the young ones think they are amazing at art, and they should, because they are bringing top tier ideas to the table. And that is an energy I want to keep as much as I can for the rest of my life, because that's what we all should want without having it beaten out of us. So that was a clickbaity title, I know. I do genuinely feel there is so much more to watercolor than florals and hand lettering. I do not blame those artists for doing that. I do not blame them for sharing their art. I blame the algorithms for pushing that and pushing that and pushing that. I also think that those types of art, in a way, are easier to digest because they are simpler forms of art, and that's a good thing. Digestibility can be important. Mass appeal can be important. I love commercial art. I make commercial art. I am not dissing commercial art. Readability is important, but I do think that makes it easier to share, and it makes it easier to not feel like you are risking something, revealing something about yourself to other people when you share a Bible scripture beautifully hand lettered. That doesn't necessarily mean you're putting yourself out there. But I think there's a lot of really awesome illustration and picture book art and comic art that requires a little bit more time and a little bit more thought that just doesn't do so well on social media, because social media is so immediate, it is so quick, it is so constant, it expects daily updates. A hand letterer could do daily updates. Watercolor comic artists, we can share progress, but we can't show daily updates the way a hand letterer could. So it can be harder for us to get the audience, to get the foot in the door, to get the mass appeal that would make making these things a little bit easier, a little bit more financially stable. And I'm not going to go into this too much here because I talked about it a lot in Comics Broke Me. And I think if you want to learn more about what it's like being a comic artist, I have some more vlogs where I talk about why I chose self-publishing, and then I talk about also like why I have a mega palette, and I explain painting numerous pages in batch necessitates convenience colors that you can count on time and time again. I talk about what I do a lot. This isn't meant to be all-encompassing. It's meant to inspire you to look at watercolor differently, to challenge the conventions of what watercolor could be, and to challenge your own preconceived biases over what art is good art and what art is bad art, what art is valid art worthy of a gallery showing, and what art is only to be invited to Food Truck Friday and to other vending events, and otherwise, who the heck would want this? I want to challenge you guys to think about those things, not think about those things and how other people might think about you for thinking about those things, but how you genuinely feel about those things. What kind of art do you want in your home? How do you want to spend your artistic free time? What kind of things do you love and you want to see more of in the world? What kind of moments do you want to capture? Do you want to do plein air painting while you're on trips, which is a beautiful way to capture memories of a trip in a beautiful book? Do you want to paint your kids playing in the yard and really focus on that moment and the greenness of the grass and the blueness of the sky and how the sun glints in their hair? Do you want to capture a moment of your hamster, your guinea pig, your pet rat playing with some toys with fierce abandon, knowing their lives can be so short, and you want to paint this as an act of love, not just for yourself, but for them? How do you want to spend your art time? What kind of art do you want in your house for you to look at every day? Not just for your occasional guests to look at. Because look, if you care about what your occasional guests think, that's your choice. I understand that. Social signaling is an important thing. We are a social species. It's important. I get it. But you could put the art for you in your bedroom. You could put the art for you in your office on a wall that doesn't show up in a Zoom meeting. You could put the art for you in your bathroom. You could buy art for your kids to put up in their rooms. It doesn't have to be in the public spaces unless you want it to. But I am very biased, and I will tell you this. Anytime I go to a house where they have original art, where I can tell the person who lives there has taste of their own and a personality of their own, and they're not just buying 1,000 fleur-de-lis, and they're not just buying all the stuff all their friends have that's sold at the boutique down the street, that they commissioned an artist, that they met an artist, that they go to art shows, that they go to craft markets, and they wanted to own something unique that spoke to them. I think they're cool as heck. Are you kidding me? They've got such flair, such pizzazz, such drip. This is somebody with thoughts and feelings and emotions and an opinion, and they're not just buying what they were told to buy by everyone else, and that makes them super cool in my book. And I don't know if a dorky comic artist like me, if my opinion means much to you, but that's what I think, and I bet other people think the same thing too. Or maybe they just don't even notice. But it sure beats the ugly, ugly paintings of horses they've got up at Universal Furniture, which if that's your taste, that's your taste. I can't help you. Maybe in the right scenario, that would look cool as all get out, but like, you know, you could have your horse painted. You could have you as a horse painted. You could have your super cool dog painted. You could have your kids painted. It could be yours and not anyone else's but yours. And that could be really cool. So I hope I gave you guys some food for thought. I hope I didn't alienate any of my loose watercolor, floral, or hand lettering friends. I will also, in all fairness, caveat that I might be able to paint like this, or like this, or like this, or like this, or like these, or like these, or like this. I can't hand letter to save my life. I took a class on it for comics in SCAD, and I passed. I made an A, but I have early onset arthritis, and that kind of fine motor control, and that extends to watercolor florals, and I'm trying to teach myself Chinese watercolor because of the beautiful brushwork and the reliance on using your brush and knowing your brush and trusting your hands. That is really, really hard for me as somebody with a disability. So I struggle with it. I'm not good at it. I have a lot of respect for the people who are good at it. I just want to challenge them and you to try something different, to push yourself and to expand yourself. Because if I can try loose watercolor florals and hand lettering and fail abysmally at it, but still be a decent artist with some self-confidence and something to say, I believe you guys can challenge yourselves to do something out of your wheelhouse. And another thing, this is more time consuming, 100%. It is also more forgiving and in some ways easier. So don't let something like this intimidate you, because all these layers are an opportunity to adjust colors and change colors and shift colors and add nuance and add detail and fix things. Whereas with the loose florals, often that is one and done, and you got to figure out how to correct that mistake. So to me, that's like watching Cirque du Soleil, a tightrope walker, do it beautifully and make it look effortless, like they're only a foot off the ground. I can't tightrope walk. I'm like the animal trainer. Patience, resilience, working with the medium can also get you the results that you want. Both important parts of the show, and I do realize like animal trainers, not such a great thing. Dogs, I'm training dogs, or cats, I'm training cats, or rats, I'm something pet animal, okay? Not like a large exotic where that might be cruel and unfair. I am the lovingest of the trainers, by the way. So in that analogy, just realizing that like this ain't no Tiger King over here, I promise. and we're certainly not SeaWorld, all right? But basically, both are really important parts of the show. Both require training and dedication. One of them makes it seem so effortless. The other one, you know there has to be practice and a relationship there, but both of them require practice and a relationship with the materials. So I really, really hope I've inspired you guys today. I hope I have challenged you to examine your biases. I hope that I have inspired you, sparked that creativity, and I also hope that I have made you feel empowered. I hope I made you feel like your heart has wings, that your hand can draw the things that you can imagine, because I believe it. Are you going to be the best at it? No. None of us are the best at it. There's always somebody better. Is that a reason not to do it? No. There's a million art styles. Taken in isolation, you might look at something that Maurice Sendak had drawn and think it was ugly and grotesque. Taken as a whole, charming children's books that stand the test of time that people really resonate with. Beatrix Potter, you might look at her rabbits in little clothes and her mice wearing little hats and think, ugh, twee garbage. But as a whole, it is a children's series, beloved, that has stood the test of time, created by a female creator and author at a time when that just was not done. Just because you are not the shiniest, most realistic, bestest, most impressive in isolation, that your each individual piece is not speaking the song that people want to hear, does not mean the sum of your work isn't going to be hugely meaningful and impactful to other people. And I don't know if that's what you want from your art. It's fine if it isn't. You should make art because of your own reasons and things that make you happy. But I know so many people stop themselves because they think they're not going to be good enough. You're not going to be good enough. I'm not good enough. It doesn't matter. Cringe doesn't exist. You are free. Make ugly art, make ugly art, make ugly art. And either you will have made so much ugly art that it becomes an art style that people really like, or you'll get good at it. But either way, you made art, and either way, you are cooler than every single other person who doesn't make art. And my husband doesn't really make art, so I think I'm cooler than him in that regard. But he's really good at computer stuff, and I'm terrible at computer stuff, so he's really cool at that. We could all be cool at different things, but like artists, in this artist's opinion, super duper cool. Hobbyist artists who just make art for fun, super duper cool. Good on you. Love that thing. So I hope you guys feel inspired. I hope you guys feel enlightened. I hope you guys feel empowered. And I hope I will get to hang out with you guys more in the future. If you guys like my art and would like to own some of it, I do sell my originals. It is hard. Okay, first off, I don't have an Etsy. I don't do Etsy right now. I might in the future. I just don't do it. I do have a personal site though, natasoup.com/shop. So I see more of the money and I don't have to pay a fee for every item I list, which is win-win for everyone involved. So I hope you guys will go and just look and just check it out. But I do sell originals. If you see an original that you like, one of these, no, it's over here, is spoken for already, but you can inquire about originals, and I'm going to try to be better about listing them and promoting when they're available, but I do sell them to people who are interested. I also have much more affordable art prints. They are beautiful cat print art prints on their felt cotton paper. They are signed. They look, this is one of them, actually. This is one of my cat print art prints, because this was painted in a Shizen watercolor sketchbook originally. Beautiful paper, beautiful quality, packed in a UV resistant bag with a backer board and a card. I sell art prints in 9x9, 9x12, and 10x14, and I also sell art postcards, which are, how are they not more popular? My art postcards are just $3 each. They're printed by me. They've got that beautiful matte finish on one side, writable on the other side. Perfect to mail or keep. One of my good friends bought all of the Louisiana food series and framed them, and they are up in her kitchen. That is such a good use. She is a genius. You should be smart like Jolene. I don't know why they're not more popular, because they're like smaller size art that you could buy en masse, and then have an entire mini art gallery in a bathroom, in your hallway, in your entryway, in your bonus room, in your kids' room. So if you like art, that could be a good way to own some art. I also have my books. So if you like to color or you'd like to paint with me, curious little things, many of the illustrations in here have corresponding watercolor tutorials that are already up on YouTube if you'd like to paint along with me. And my method for watercolor tutorials is not use this color, then this color, then this color, and do it this, and this. I want to teach you how I think about watercolor so that you can paint your own stuff. You can paint whatever you want. I want to teach you how to fly. We're doing the whole give a man a fish and he'll have fish for a day. Teach a man to fish and he'll have fish for life. And that's what I'm going for here. And hopefully we're doing it. I want to empower you to make art. I also have my comics, 7-inch Kara. And okay, I will tell you guys something. It is a little mini pet peeve of mine. I have had parents and grandparents come to my table, like my art, looking for a book for their grandchild or their child. And they'll flip through and they'll say, you got any books with words in it? First of all, comics have words in them. Comics have been proven to be a great reading resource for emerging readers, for reluctant readers, for struggling readers, and just for readers in general. Comics are actual books. They are real books. They teach real skills, just like regular prose books do. Comics are wonderful. Is there an audio version of my comic yet? Not yet. If you are interested, I will do one for you guys. Also, the back of the books include how-to sections to inspire other artists to make their art, because I love how-to sections. The second volume is even more words, even more pictures, even nicer art, because I grew as an artist. Wow. When I started volume 1, I was not afraid of failure, and it shows. But it also has this really, really nice, very wordy, for the parents and grandparents who need the words, very wordy making of section to inspire and enlighten. But if you have these comics, or your child has lots of comics and you don't want to buy another comic, whatever your reason, I do have a book. Oh, hey, there's my Galaxy bookmark that I did. I have a tutorial for this one coming up, but I taught this for a class. How cute. I was looking for that. It was in my book. I do have a book that has written words, like a paragraph of world building to inspire the imagination. Could be yours, could be for a tabletop gamer, could be for a young reader. And then it has an illustrated prompt that reflects that. So we've got some correspondence between the text and the image. Super good for reading, very good for literacy. Yes. So, and I'll be real with you guys, I'm just kind of like snarky about it because I'm a comic artist. I did my thesis on this, and I think the bias against comics and graphic novels is ill-founded, and it just hurts readers. Any reading is good reading. Any reading is good reading. You will build confidence. You will build competency. You can read them together. You can practice doing funny voices. You can practice playing out the different characters. Comics are inviting. Comics are intelligent. Comics are real books. So I have to fight the good fight. I'm sorry. I titled this video what I titled it, hoping that some of the people who are interested in making art, but who feel like their only options are the brush calligraphy or the loose florals, or they're afraid to try anything else, I wanted to capture them and maybe inspire them and talk to them for a minute. And look, if you're like, yeah, I heard you're loud, girl, but I'm gonna go do brush calligraphy, or I'm gonna do loose watercolor florals because that's what I want to do, good. I'm proud of you. That's what you want to do. That's what we're here to do. Or if you're like, yeah, your art is cool and I like what you have to say, but I'm also gonna do those other things, good for you. I'm trying to learn those things too. We are on the same page. I am, to be crystal, not here to slam them, their work, or people interested in their work. I am simply here to slam the algorithm and biases against comic and cartoon art, and to also slam the preconceived notion that this is inherently more difficult than the loose florals, which are really kind of hard. Now, I can teach you how to draw. I am here to help you, and if what I have to say doesn't help you, there are a bunch of great resources I can put in front of you, share with you on the Discord channel, what have you, that will help you learn how to draw. You don't even have to be that great at drawing to like drawing and to like art. So let's get rid of those old negative feelings that we developed in middle school and high school about drawing and making time for art, and let's make some art. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. I want to thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I really enjoyed talking about it. When we do the vlogs, I always get kind of rambly, but y'all seem to like them, and I kind of like them. I also want to give myself and my husband a shout out for setting up this set. It is remedial, sure, but we don't normally set up sets, so yeah. And oh, for sure, it is a set, because my house and my life is a mess, and I am not showing you guys that. And I did want to show you guys my art, and I didn't want to just do it outside or at my drafting table. So thank you, Joseph, for helping me set this up. He is the support staff behind the scenes that makes the magic happen, and it could not, absolutely could not happen without his help and support, and I really appreciate it. And I wanted to acknowledge that and be honest about that, because I am not a one-woman Wonder Woman. I am not a one-woman show. And I think some of my friends who struggle to make time to make art, they don't understand how much my husband helps me and how much I appreciate that. And don't beat yourself up if you're not getting the support that you deserve or that you need, or you're not getting the free time that you deserve or that you need, and thus you cannot make art. I understand, even though Joseph is super supportive, I understand that. I have several family members with health issues. I don't always get to choose when I can do things and what my time looks like. So, and that is not nearly as extreme as some people. So I do want to acknowledge, I don't think you are less if you want to make art and you legitimately do not have time to. I can throw out some suggestions for making art a part of your daily life in small ways that can scale up to being able to make art more often. But I just wanted to say I see you, I acknowledge you, I have so much respect for you. Like, man, that's the level of sacrifice and love necessary to do that is tremendous. And I just thank you for being you, you know? But I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you guys for hanging out with me. I look forward to hanging out with you guys again. I have some more vlog topics that I want to talk about. And maybe I will try to reuse this set before I tear it down, so you might see it again. But I promise I'll change clothes so that we can pretend we did this on a different day instead of back to back to back, you know? But if you like my vlogs, subscribe. If you like my tutorials, subscribe. If you like my reviews, subscribe. If you're looking for comic making content, I have some. A lot of it is still really good, but a little bit older, so you have to look for it. It's in the playlist. I have a bunch of playlists on making comics. My favorite is making comics in zines. That is a really cool playlist. I worked on that while teaching that class with Nashville Community Ed, a class of older teens and adults, so I think you guys will really dig it. I also have a bunch of introduction to watercolor classes, as well as my Stash Buster bookmark series. Check the description, please check the description, please check the description, because I'll link all these playlists out for you guys to make it super easy for you guys to find, because I always forget to do the pinned tweet. I don't know why, and I know other people that's like the standard now. ADHD, that's why, ADHD. But yeah, please check the description. Come hang out with me in the paint box. I'll put the link in the Discord link in the description below. I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Do me a favor. If you made it this far, you are a superstar, and I want you to comment one thing you would be very excited to learn how to paint. Let me know what you want to learn how to paint, and I hope to see you guys again really soon. Have a wonderful day, guys. Bye.